Hello, and welcome back to the Crime Reel. For this week's true crime narration, we shall be visiting Texas in the USA to look at the story of Bobby Gonzales and the Caldwell family. Robert Anthony Gonzales, who was known as Bobby, was born on the 26th of July 1976 in Collin County, Texas, to Eloisa and Benito Gonzales. Bobby was known to be a good kid who was mild-mannered and friendly. He got on well at school and was athletic, particularly enjoying playing basketball and American football. He had a close relationship with his parents and 4 brothers. When he was around 13 or 14 years old, Bobby began dating a girl by the name of Chrissy Lynn Caldwell, who was also in his 8th grade class. Chrissy was born on the 2nd of October 1975, becoming the second daughter of Rosalind and Vernon Caldwell. They also had a 3-year-old by the name of Brandy. Rosalind and Vernon were seen as upstanding religious members of the local community. Chrissy had a great bond with her parents during her younger years, but as she got older, this relationship began to deteriorate. This was not helped by the fact that her parents completely disapproved of her interracial relationship with Bobby. Rosalind and Vernon forbade their daughter from seeing Bobby, who was not allowed into their home. Despite this, Chrissy continued the relationship and spent increasing amounts of time at Bobby's house. Bobby's family, who approved of the relationship, welcomed Chrissy into their home with open arms. As tensions continued to rise between the Caldwells and their youngest daughter, their relationship became ever worse. However, Bobby and Chrissy continued to date in secret for 2 years, vowing that nothing would ever come between them. Chrissy would often write letters to Bobby and began to disclose her deepest fears and secrets. She expressed concern that her father would hurt her sister and was adamant that she would kill him rather than let him do the same things to her sister that she had endured. Ultimately, she confided in Bobby that her father had been abusing her and that her mother was doing nothing about it. Following this, the pair formed a deadly plan. 15-year-old Bobby, who was deeply in love with 16-year-old Chrissy, believed that something had to be done. He believed that her parents needed to be stopped and that he had to protect Chrissy no matter what. If he didn't do it, then who would? The couple began to talk about the idea of killing Chrissy's parents and decided that they needed to hire someone to do this for them. They approached 2 friends, Salvador Mata and Abraham Flores, but these friends refused to help. They did, however, suggest that Bobby and Chrissy speak to a man by the name of Ray Hernandez. However, Ray also refused to help them. With no other options, Bobby agreed that he would kill them, and Chrissy would steal her father's gun from his bedside table for Bobby to use. On Friday, 6th of March 1992, Bobby and Chrissy skipped school after their second lesson. They drove around for a while in Chrissy's black Chevrolet Blazer, with Vernon's gun hidden under the front passenger seat. Both Chrissy and Bobby returned to their respective homes, and later that evening, Chrissy told her parents that she was going out with some friends. In reality, she was meeting up with Bobby to finalise their plans. Meanwhile, Vernon and Rosalind had gone to bed for the night at around 10 p.m. Chrissy had a weekend curfew of 12:30, and it was a long-standing family rule that she should wake her parents when she arrived home so that they knew she was safe. However, on the night in question, Chrissy let Bobby into their house and pointed him towards the master bedroom. Rosalind and Vernon were asleep in their bed when Bobby walked in and opened fire. Rosalind was hit by a bullet which went through her foot and then into her head. She was killed instantly. Vernon was hit twice in the lower half of his body. As Bobby left the house, Chrissy called 911 to report the shooting. When talking to the call operator, she was so matter-of-fact in her tone that they initially believed that the call was a hoax. When the emergency services arrived, Vernon was in a critical condition and was immediately transported to the hospital. Thankfully, he survived his injuries. Initially working on the theory that this had been a burglary gone wrong, the police searched for evidence in the surrounding area, but without any success. The burglary theory was soon discredited due to there being no signs of a break-in, nothing had been taken, and the contents of the house had not been disturbed. It soon came to the attention of the police that there was a lot of talk at the local high school as to what had happened that night, and on the 3rd of April 1992, Bobby Gonzales was arrested, much to the shock of those who knew him. 3 months later, on the 6th of July 1992, Chrissy was arrested at McKinney High School where she was attending summer camp. The bail was set at $100,000 for each of them. Bobby's family were unable to pay, and Chrissy's father was definitely not willing to, so they both remained in jail awaiting trial. It was decided that they would both be tried independently of each other, and in pre-trial hearings it was certified that they should be tried as adults, something which Vernon was keen on happening. At Bobby's trial he admitted that he had been the shooter, but testified that Chrissy had talked him into it and that she had a hold over him. The state brought in around 70 letters which Chrissy had written to Bobby during the course of their relationship, including one which described how she was trying to get hold of $1,000 to pay someone to kill her parents. Bobby also testified that he was desperate to end the abuse which Chrissy was being subjected to. However, no evidence of abuse has ever been found, and this accusation is completely unsubstantiated. It would seem that whilst Bobby felt that he was protecting the girl he loved, that same girl was manipulating him to get rid of her parents so that she could inherit their money and live without the rules which they imposed upon her. Bobby was found guilty of first-degree murder and on the 23rd of April 1993 received a mandatory life sentence. At Chrissy's trial, her father Vernon testified against her. He admitted that he was opposed to interracial dating and stated that Chrissy had a difficult relationship with her family. She had been thrown out of their house on at least one occasion and had been hospitalised for psychiatric care in 1989 and 1990. It was disclosed that during this hospital stay, Chrissy was described as wishing that her parents would be injured or die. Vernon once again stated that he had never abused his daughter. Additionally, it came to light that a few months before the shooting, Chrissy had told her best friend that she wished her parents would die so that she and Brandy could live in the house without their authority. Chrissy did not testify. She was also sentenced to life in prison, with the prosecutor, Bill Schultz, declaring that he believed the girl could not be rehabilitated. After the trial was complete, Vernon stated that the family is very pleased with the outcome of the trial. We are very proud of the district attorney and the sheriff's office and the jurors. We're very pleased. With his wife's murderers locked away in prison, Vernon attempted to move on with his life, but found that the anger was consuming him. Over time, he came to the conclusion that in order for him to move forward with his own life, he needed to forgive Bobby and Chrissy. Initially, he found it easier to forgive Bobby, as without Chrissy's orchestration, his wife would never have been murdered. So, in an act that shocked Bobby, Vernon went to visit him in prison. This was the first time that the two of them had ever spoken face to face. Vernon told Bobby that he had forgiven him for the shooting. However, Bobby said that he could not forgive himself. Despite this, Bobby believes that he is not a bad person, but that he had made one horrifically bad decision in life. At the time, he didn't think of the consequences of his actions. He simply believed that it needed to be done to protect Chrissy, no matter what. Since then, Vernon has also forgiven his daughter and now visits her in prison, taking her books and money to make her life a little easier. Eventually, Chrissy's sister Brandy also took the same path and decided on forgiveness. Chrissy, however, still does not know why she acted the way she did, saying that it started off as a joke which got out of hand, and is still unable to forgive herself. Vernon has spoken of his regret of his decision to push for the pair to be tried as adults, and has even spent time getting to know Bobby's family. Bobby and Chrissy remain in prison to this day, having so far served 28 years for their crimes. The question of whether mandatory life sentences without the possibility of parole should be handed to juveniles is the subject of intense debate. The state of Texas imposed a mandatory life sentence on any juvenile convicted of capital murder. Less than 5% of these juveniles will ever be paroled, so in over 95% of these cases, this life sentence becomes the equivalent of life without parole. In 2012, the Supreme Court ruled that a life without parole sentence for a juvenile was unconstitutional, but the Texas Federal Court ruled that juvenile appeals based on this ruling had to be filed within 1 year. This means that Bobby cannot apply for resentencing. Bobby first becomes eligible for parole in 2027, but the odds of him ever being released are less than 1 in 20. The main argument against these life sentences is that children cannot be held to the same standards of responsibility as adults, as the adolescent brain functions differently to an adult one. Adolescence is often marked by impetuous decisions, immaturity, failure to appreciate risks and consequences, limiting the ability to make sound judgments. So, if the law says that they can't marry, vote, enter into legal contracts or leave school because of their immaturity, should they really be handed down a mandatory life sentence? Whilst the need for punishment for their actions remains, should this be more directed towards their greater capacity and need for rehabilitation? Mandatory sentencing does not take into account the circumstances of the crime, the offender's family and home environment, or previous offences, if any, and on this basis, should the restriction of life without parole be reserved for the offenders who are truly beyond any hope of rehabilitation? Or do you believe that if you take a life, you should remain in prison for the rest of yours, irrespective of your age and the circumstances relating to the crime? I believe that this is a very interesting debate, and as usual, would really like to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks very much for listening to The Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. While researching this case, I found details that Bobby and Chrissy got married early in their prison term, but divorced a short while later. I've been unable to find any further details about this, so I'm unsure if it is true. Goodbye.